morning to you and your family. It is Wednesday. It's November 16th. I'm Ainsley Earhart. Who's hired for President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet? Well, a lot of high-profile people spotted at Trump Tower, including former rival Ted Cruz, Senator Jeff Sessions, and Tommy Hilfiger?
Of course.
We have the latest, Brian.
You never know who you'll see at Trump Tower. Then it might be the most outrageous behavior we've seen yet from our president-elect. Trump leaves behind the press for a steak dinner, showing a lack of transparency.
You mean he ate?
Oh my goodness, over at NBC. And that's actually news for them this morning.
And for all those people crying about the results of the election, one state lawmaker has a message for you.
You've got a right to be a brat. You've got a right to protest. That's constitutionally protected. But you do not have a right to throw a temper tantrum on Interstate 80 and put my constituents' lives in danger.
Really? Every single college student, please pay attention to him. That man behind the Suck It Up Buttercup, Bill, here live.
Suck it up, Buttercup. I love that.
Can I finish, please?
No.
Right, thank you.
I said no.
Oh. All right, let Ainsley say it. Go ahead.
Get dressed.
Mornings are better with Ainsley.
It's got to be huge.
All right, Pete's got discretionary spending, so he'll take care of it.
That's exactly right. I've got it covered.
All right, let's get straight to our top story this morning. Who will Donald Trump hire? President-elect Donald Trump holding intense interviews for his cabinet.
And this morning, we're learning the brand new big name spotted at Trump Tower.
We got Garrett Tenney live in Washington, D.C. with the latest of the list because they're coming from Washington and going to New York.
Hey, good morning, y'all. Pretty much there's a giant help wanted sign at Trump Tower in New York right now, and there are lots of folks showing up for it. You have to remember, there are nearly 4,000 positions to fill in this administration, so a lot of names are being thrown out there. And yesterday, we saw a lot of those same names going in and out of Trump Tower, along with a couple of new faces as well. Here are a few of the folks we saw. Senator Jeff Sessions, who's been rumored to be on the shortlist for several cabinet positions, including Secretary of Defense, along with retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg. Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi was also seen coming in and out. She's been talked about as a potential nominee candidate for Attorney General. PayPal co-founder Peter Thiel. Donald Trump Jr. was also seen, along with Mr. Trump's ex-wife, Marla Maples, and Tommy Hilfiger, though we should note he has an office in the building, so it's not clear if he was there to actually meet with the Trumps. One of the more surprising faces we saw, though, was former Trump rival Texas Senator Ted Cruz. He is now rumored as a potential pick for Attorney General. Now, Cruz wouldn't comment on that, but he did say he looks forward to working with Mr. Trump on his agenda. Now, as speculation runs rampant, Mr. Trump weighed in last night on Twitter to make it clear he's the one in charge, saying, very organized process taking place as I decide on cabinet and many other positions. I am the only one who knows who the finalists are. And throughout the campaign, we've heard Mr. Trump promise to drain the swamp. Well, last night we learned his transition team is making good on that promise and is now removing all lobbyists from its transition team efforts. Back to y'all.
Yeah, that's thank you very much. Good job, Garrett. That's real. I think that's pretty important. The one thing about the Trump team, they adjust. They did not look good to have lobbyists on the transition team, and it was rumored that Governor Christie is the one who did it. So Vice President Pence, elect President, takes over, says, "Oh yeah, the lobbyists, you're going to have to leave."
Yeah, well, that was a promise that they made, and he also made a decision. It wasn't going the way he wanted with Chris Christie, so we're going to adjust fire and go with Mike Pence. But the New York Times, as they always do, of course, this morning's headline, I don't know if we can zoom in on it, says firings and discord put Trump transition team in a state of utter and complete disarray. I guess that fair and balanced coverage they were going to shoot for, based on that mea culpa, hasn't quite gotten there. I mean, disarray, the loaded language on the cover, when in reality, hey, they're organizing a government. They didn't expect to win, and Donald Trump's in charge. He's going to make these calls. There's no reason to believe it's in disarray at all.
I just want to know where Tommy Hilfiger was going. Was he going to his office or the 65th floor, which is where Trump lives?
If you want to buy stuff right in the lobby, you can buy ties and shirts and ascots.
Hats.
Maybe, and Tommy Hilfiger, maybe just looking to make a few purchases right in Trump Tower. A few things. Well, some of the rumors that are out there. Number one, bit of a surprise. Ben Carson said, I'm not really going to run anything. I don't want to be part of the cabinet. I've never done that before. I'm a little surprised he feels that way, but he was running for president for a year. The other thing, Jeff Miller possibly running up the VA. He's somebody in Congress holding them accountable. Very curious. I know you're quoted in the New York Times article, Pete.
Yeah.
To see if he would be a good choice.
Well, he's led the charge on VA reform and on Capitol Hill. You're going to need somebody who's willing to fight if you want to fix that department. So, yeah, a lot of names bubbling to the surface and decisions to be made.
Well, this really cracked me up this morning. NBC News, this is the headline. As Trump leaves press behind for steak dinner, incoming administration already showing lack of transparency. In the article, there's the headline. In the article, they're really upset because Trump didn't invite the press to go eat dinner with his family at the 21 Club.
Yeah, last night he decides, I'm going to have dinner. I'm a member of the 21 Club. I'm going to have a steak dinner. I'm elected president of the United States.
So he went out the back door of Trump Tower.
Yeah, takes a motorcade over there. There's a video, actually. I don't know if we've got it, if we can play it over, but he's greeted by cheering in the crowd there. And you know, here's a guy who has lived in New York City, member of that club, wants to go have dinner. And the press are apoplectic.
You don't have to be a member. Anyone can go.
Okay, anyone can go.
Yeah, it's a very expensive cheeseburger.
That's true. It is, actually. I've been there. In the article, NBC says, and I quote, with his Tuesday night actions, the Trump administration is shaping up to be the least accessible to the public and press in modern history. Here we are a week into president-elect, and they're the least transparent in modern history because he went
If there's anyone who's transparent, you can accuse him of a lot of things, but he is extremely transparent.
Yeah.
Remember Hillary Clinton, how long did it, she went like 200 days, 200 plus days without a press conference.
She probably, if she went to the 21 Club, I guess the point was she would have tweeted or texted somebody.
Right.
But he didn't. But of course, the 21 Club's a legendary club, and it's got things hanging from the ceiling and from the walls. A lot of people go there if they have extra money.
If you're the CEO of a company, apparently like Coca-Cola, the CEO of the company would eat there and then leave like one of the Coke trucks or the Hess truck is hanging from the ceiling. It's such a cool experience. It's expensive, but it's a great experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, Donald Trump probably can afford it because he's turning down the salary of $400,000. Hey, let's talk about the Democrats down in Capitol Hill yesterday. One of the stories, there was not a lot of anxiety there, no doubt about it. Speaker's going to be Paul Ryan. The leadership returns, but on the left, a stunning development. Yeah. The Democrats said, "Wait a second, why are we putting leadership back in place? We lost the House, we lost the Senate, we lost some seats, we lost the White House, and we don't even have a clear vision." Nancy Pelosi, expecting to be the minority leader, got a rude awakening. You will wait, Nancy.
That's exactly right. Democratic Congressman Ruben Gallego had this to say about why he believed they needed to delay the vote.
We don't want to rush a vote to leadership for them to think that everything is business as usual. Everything's not good. Business as usual is no longer going to work. And if we have the same leadership, as long as they understand what the purpose of their leadership is and where it's coming from and what it's supposed to do, I think a lot of us will feel more comfortable.
So the gentleman speaking there is Ruben Gallego, Iraq vet from Arizona. Right next to him is Seth Moulton, a congressman from Massachusetts, another Iraq vet. Young guys who probably saying, hey, it's been Nancy Pelosi for over a decade here. She's clearly an ATM machine for the left. She knows how to raise money. But if she's not effective and we're losing elections, then why would we just double down on that? So they got problems inside the Democratic caucus on Capitol Hill.
Well, it's definitely, they've made it clear this is a move because they're very concerned about the direction of the party and they want to make some changes.
And when you saw, so on the House side, they want to make some changes because Nancy Pelosi, even though she says some things outright, immediately say, I'll work with Donald Trump if it's indeed possible, nothing ever gets done. No. And the Democrats realize they are paying the price. They think Republicans are, but if you look at the seats on both sides, they are paying the price. Very curious to see if their leader, Keith Ellison, gets the nod as the next DNC head.
What's so interesting is they were all saying Donald Trump's not going to win. We need the establishment. Hillary Clinton has the experience. Now the Democratic Party is doing exactly what the Republicans did. They're draining the swamp. If she doesn't, they've delayed the vote. They're not going to make a decision yet until after Thanksgiving. If they decide that Nancy Pelosi shouldn't be the leader anymore and they put someone who's younger and doesn't have as much experience in office, I think it proves they're draining the swamp too.
Oh, yeah. They're having the crisis that they thought Republicans were going to have.
Right.
Instead, Paul Ryan, McCarthy, everyone there was unanimously elected.
Good for them. They're listening to the American people.
Yeah. All right. We'll see what gets done first. Meanwhile, this alert.
We have some headlines for you. We're going to start with a Fox News alert. The Department of Homeland Security and FBI issuing a brand new terror warning for the holiday season. Officials say the coming weeks could give terrorists opportunities to strike public events with large crowds. Right now, there are no specific credible threats, so you don't have to be so concerned. Just be vigilant. The warning comes after an ISIS magazine encountered encouraged followers of ISIS to attack using a photo of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, encouraging lone wolves to drive vehicles into crowds like this summer's deadly attack we saw in France. The Oklahoma City airport is back open this morning after the father of an NFL player is gunned down in what's being called a calculated attack. Police say that Michael Winchester, a Southwest employee, was shot in a parking lot at Will Rogers Airport. The airport was immediately put on lockdown. The suspect shot himself dead in the airport parking lot, and police found him after hours of combing the area. The victim's son is James Winchester. There he is. He's a long snapper for the Kansas City Chiefs. And the election might be over, but Hillary Clinton's email scandal is not. Utah Congressman Jason Chaffetz saying there is still work to do.
We got to get to the truth. It was never about the political targeting of Hillary Clinton, but she did create one of the biggest security breaches in the history of the State Department. So we have tens of thousands of documents we still haven't seen.
Hillary Clinton is blaming her loss on the FBI director, James Comey, who reopened the case just 11 days before the election. And tens of thousands of students are planning to walk out of class today in protest. They're protesting President-elect Donald Trump. The movement is known as #SanctuaryCampus. It's planned for at least 45 colleges and universities nationwide. Students intend to form human walls symbolizing protection for minorities and illegal immigrants against Mr. Trump's deportation threats. And those are your headlines.
There we go. Suck it up, Buttercup. We're going to talk to him later on. A member who's proposing some legislation that would push back on some of that stuff. All right, the president-elect plans to keep some parts of Obamacare in place.
Are you going to make sure that people with preconditions are still covered?
Yes, because it happens to be one of the strongest assets.
But can we actually afford to do that? Our next guest is a congressman, veteran, and a doctor, and he's here live to comment on it.
All right, and restaurants around the country kick tobacco smokers to the curb. But marijuana, come on in, bring your own bong.
With their parents for an extended period, you're going to keep very
that.
much try and keep that. Adds cost, but it's very much something we're going to try and keep.
So after Obamacare, will Trump care look like something that we can afford to pay for? Can the country afford to pay for the popular provisions like we just heard? Let's ask Republican Congressman and doctor himself, Andy Harris, working with the House Republicans and President-elect Committee in designing this new plan. Congressman, we keep hearing you guys are ready with this plan. When you heard that question from Leslie Stahl and the answer from Donald Trump, what were you thinking?
Look, I think he's absolutely right on point. There's broad agreement that you need to keep protections for people with pre-existing conditions because, as I tell people, everybody either has one or is afraid they're going to have one. So we can do that, but 27 states did it before the Obamacare bill. We can incentivize states to create these high-risk pools, get people with pre-existing conditions into them, and then allow them to make those insurance provisions portable to other companies in the future.
Other companies, and make, when you say portability, you also mean portability to other states, right?
Absolutely. The same things that the HIPAA law, this is a 20-year-old law that allows group-to-group coverage to continue. So if you change employers, you go to a different state, makes no difference, you're guaranteed insurable.
So the other one would be costly to insurers. Are they up to 26? And they'll say, okay, there's a mandate, cut to of the 26. There's a cost to that. How do you deal with that?
Well, under the Affordable Care Act, those insurers are allowed to charge for those children. It's not free on the policy. So there really is no additional cost to the government because those insurance companies are allowed to charge, but they just allow those children to have access to the policy.
One thing we saw is a 3-year run on Obamacare. What everyone thought would work, what everyone thought wouldn't work. We see premium increases in Arizona 116%, Pennsylvania 53%, North Carolina 40%, Iowa 25%. What did you learn as a physician, now a lawmaker, from watching Obamacare implode that you can apply right now?
Well, the one thing is, the reason why it failed is it had the individual mandate, and then when it required young, healthy people to pay exorbitant premiums to go into these plans to subsidize people with pre-existing conditions. You can't do that. You can't distribute that cost among a very small exchange group. You actually have to distribute it among a much wider group, and that's the way to make it work. Obamacare never did that and was doomed to failure.
All right, so are we looking at, hey, Donald Trump, congratulations, you're president. The next day, you're going to have this replace plan ready to go?
Well, you know, it depends. If the Democrats are willing to work with us and do it with, outside the framework of Obamacare, we could have it ready to go immediately. If we have to build it into Obamacare and somehow, repeal parts of it but not other parts, it's a messy bill that has a lot of moving parts to it. It would be much easier if we just repealed the whole thing and then reestablish the high-risk, coverage for high-risk people, and then the coverage up to age 26.
And of course, Congressman, you're worried about the Senate, where they need 60 votes to rip it out. Congressman Andy Harris, thanks so much.
My pleasure.
All right, coming up straight ahead. For all the people crying over the results of the election, our next guest has a great message, I think. Anyway, suck it up, Buttercup. It's a great song and a wonderful phrase. And we asked people in battleground states who they were voting for. Now we want to know, are they happy with the results? Abby?
You don't have a constitutional right to impede on the constitutional rights of others. And when you're blocking the interstate, when you're falsely imprisoning my constituents and putting their lives in danger, I have a big problem with that. So I'm proposing to increase the penalties and giving law enforcement more tools to prevent that from happening in the future.
Well, this is something happening in Iowa. Those same kind of protests happen in my home state of Minnesota. And you wonder why more isn't being done from the federal government and others to make sure that lawlessness doesn't rule the day. We heard about another campus today. Rutgers University wants to declare itself a sanctuary campus. We've heard other campuses mentioning this. What would you do in Iowa or elsewhere if universities want to declare themselves sanctuary campuses?
Well, I mean, it would depend on what sanctuary campus means. If it means peaceful protesting and it means doing it on your own time, I don't have a problem with that. But missing class and causing mass exams to be able to be pushed back.
It means the illegal immigration piece. It's sort of like a sanctuary city. They want to have a sanctuary campus as well.
Well, of course, that's absurd, and police and ICE and law enforcement and immigration officials would have to step in. I mean, we cannot have lawlessness. This is the ultimate irony that you had all these predictions of a Donald Trump presidency being anarchy and a Donald Trump presidency, being all this lawlessness. And here you have it. The very folks that claimed that was going to be the case for him are actually being the ones that are the inspiration for the case. So, no, you cannot have sanctuary campuses harboring illegal immigrants. That's just absurd.
Well, Bobby, thank you very much for joining this morning. Good luck with the bill. I think you may have triggered some kids across the country who are watching this. They may need to retreat to a safe zone and go cry. But you would say suck it up, Buttercup, and good luck with your bill. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Well, Donald Trump said the election would play out just like Brexit. He was right. But did you know part of the Brexit plan was draining the swamp in the UK as well? Steve Hilton here to explain the obstacles no one saw coming there that could happen here. And no one thought Donald Trump would win the state of Pennsylvania. There she is, serving coffee. Then he did. Abby is live, talking to voters, talking to the people on the ground at a diner in Scranton. Good morning, Abby.
Good morning, Pete. Yeah, to understand how Mr. Trump won, you've got to come down to Pennsylvania. I'm in Scranton, a part of a county that's gone Democrat for over 30 years, talking to Democrats about what made them change their vote to Mr. Trump. Good morning, sir. You want some coffee?
Yes, please.
Sure thing. We're having some great conversation. I'm going to be here all morning long. So they're putting me to work already this morning. You know how they do it. So we're going to be talking politics, drinking some coffee. But before I let you go, a big happy birthday to Maggie Gyllenhaal. She's 39 years old today. We all know her from The Dark Knight. Happy birthday, Maggie. Come back.
Make sure it's sincerely what will make your heart sing.
Ainsley, the best words of advice I ever got were from my Italian dad. He would always tell me, Neil, stay humble. In your case, it'll come in handy. Stay grounded, stay real.
Practice makes perfect. Whether it was baseball season and playing catch in the alleyway by my house, or whether it was taking notes and creating index cards because we were studying, my parents really emphasized that you're never too good for practice. And it's something that I still use to this day. In fact, I practice this.
Best advice I got from my dad was when I was little, and he said, if you want to be in a better mood, act like you are. And I remember thinking that's the phoniest thing I can ever remember hearing. And as I aged, I realized it's totally true. So I would tell your kids, be falsely cheery, and one day you'll wake up and actually be in a good mood.
The best advice my parents ever gave me is don't give anybody any advice.
My parents told me don't lie, cheat, or steal. Everything else is fair game.
Be cool, stay in school, get an education. It really worked for me.
To read, don't need your Waze app. You know your way of Sarasota.
I do, because that's where I grew up.
And if you haven't been there already, AinsleyEarhartBooks.com.
Thank you. Thank you
It's
so
my
much.
homepage
And send
now.
us your best advice from your parents, and we'll read some of those.
All right, meanwhile, let's go to the Frogcaster.
I love it. Best advice my dad ever gave me was do what you most love, and it won't feel like a job.
Here's
also,
hoping it's weather.
Be yourself as well, and dress warmly. That's the advice that I give people, because you know what? We have a big winter storm that is moving into the Northwest. That's going to be our big weather maker for much of the work week and into the weekend. Let's take a look at the maps first of all, because we've had above average temperatures for much of the U.S. 43 in Kansas City, 55 in Dallas, but we're going to set some records again today. 47 in New York. Changes are coming across the Northwest. So there's our big storm system, or at least one of them, creeping into the Rockies, then the Northern Plains, then the upper Midwest. I warned Pete that we have blizzard watches already in effect for parts of Minnesota and the Dakotas. So there's your travel forecast. The Northwest, our eyes on you, but watch this, guys, as we get into the next couple of days. A foot or more of snow, our first big winter storm of the season on the way. And I'm so happy to report it here on Fox and Friends.
That's really great.
Oh, I am duly warned. Thank you very much.
Duly warned, my friend.
The shovel is coming out.
All right. Nicely done.
That was so pretty. Great job. Thank you, Janice.
Frozen eyebrow season is straight ahead. Meanwhile, it's one of those swing states that sealed Donald Trump's improbable White House victory. A Republican candidate winning Pennsylvania for the first time in nearly 30 years.
That's right. So what are those voters thinking a full week later? Let's ask Abby Huntsman. She's talking to them live at the Viewmont Diner in Scranton. Good morning, Abby.
Hey, Abby.
Good morning, you guys. Yeah, as you mentioned, there's a lot of history to Scranton, Pennsylvania. For one, Hillary Clinton's dad was born here. He was buried here. Joe Biden was also born in Scranton, Pennsylvania. It has gone Democrat for over 30 years now. Just to give you a sense, Mitt Romney lost 4 years ago by, 27 points. This time around, though, Mr. Trump lost by just 3 points. The big question is, why did so many Democrats turn to vote for President-elect Trump? And that's what we're talking about this morning. I'm here with Bob. I'm here with Frank. Truck drivers their whole life. Bob, let's start with you. You voted for Mr. Trump, and you say it's all about cleaning house.
You have the house clean. Washington, we need to go back to basics. You need a leader. That's why we have Donald Trump in there now. What we had in the past were not leaders. They were just takers, and they used the American people to their own benefits. They played games. What we have now is a leader who's done playing games. He knows how to make a buck, and he knows how to save a buck. And that's the big difference. That's why he took my tractor trailers, put his name on them, put Hillary's name on hers. The truth is out there. To me, a picture speaks 1,000 words. And what we're trying to do is get to the American people. Go home, relax, and take America back. That's what this is all about.
What can Mr. Trump do to impact Scranton?
He could clean the house, bring jobs back here, which we're going to do.
Yeah.
Deal with the unions, deal with the issues we had. Look at the reasons why jobs left here, and that's the most important thing. Go back to history, why we lost our jobs. Change that policy, change what it is, and he's the kind of guy to make the change and bring the jobs and industry back to Scranton. Scranton's the hub of the Northeast. All the roads cross us. We're the crossroads of the Northeast, and we could grow so much more here if we deal with the tax base and the tax structure here.
Right. Well,
and he's the guy to do it.
And that's what I want to talk to Frank about, because you've been a Democrat your entire life until voting for Mr. Trump. Why?
Just because of his, like what he says, about immigration, about make America great again. We need to take our country back. We need to bring our jobs back in our factories, support our middle class, Abby. We need to do something for our middle class.
What about your Democratic friends? Because as I just mentioned, this is an area that has long been Democratic. That changed this time.
When it came to the election of the vote for, for the presidents, there was very little chatter. Nobody wanted to really step up to the plate and say, I'm voting for this person or I'm voting for that person. Myself, though, I wasn't afraid. I spoke up for Mr. Trump. I supported him from the first time he came down to Trump Tower.
You wanted him to build a wall.
Oh, I want him to build a wall. I want him to build a wall. As high as, I want the wall to be as high as, from New York City, you could see it. That's what I want. That's what I want.
Are you going to be upset if he doesn't build that wall?
I think I will be disappointed because, we need to do something about immigration. It's just part of the disaster that's going on in this country. Nothing against people, but let's do it the right way. Come to the country, pay your taxes, be a good person.
I want to bring Judy in here. He's been working hard all morning serving us coffee. Good morning, Judy. Good morning. Thanks for being here. And you guys have known each other since you were, what, 15 years old? Sit right here. Come take a little break for a minute. I'll serve you coffee. You voted for Hillary Clinton.
I did. Her platform worked better for my family. I did not support Trump and the way he spoke to people, the way he degraded people.
Are you upset?
I didn't appreciate. I am upset, but I am very, very accepting of his position. I respect his position. I hope that he earns my respect.
Well, and as I said, you guys have been friends for a very long time. You guys didn't agree on who you voted for. You guys represent so many families and friends that didn't always see eye to eye.
We spoke every morning.
So how do you guys get along? We get along great.
Yeah, we do.
We have a mutual respect.
Your favorite waitress.
Absolutely.
So what advice do you have for the country right now who are trying to come together? You see their protests all over the place. Thanksgiving's around the corner. How do people get along like you guys?
Respect one another. Just respect one another. Come together. Don't fight this. The protests are not right. They are not right. It's not going to do any good. What they're doing is not doing any good. I myself am upset. But me standing protesting isn't going to do anything about that. Let's welcome him, open-minded, and go forth. And hopefully he will do great for our country.
I love that. We're going to leave that there. We're going to keep talking here, though. I'm going to have to pass it back to you guys. But as you can see, we're having some real great conversations here this morning at the Viewmont Diner.
Right.
We'll keep it going all morning.
All right. Okay, people got to pay the bill. They got to get going. Thanks, Abby.
Send me the check.
Next on our rundown, if Abby approves, Donald Trump said the election would play out like Brexit. He was right. So how do we know? And how did he know? Part of the Brexit plan was draining the swamp in the UK, too. Steve Hilton here to explain the obstacles no one saw coming. And if he ever wore a tie, I don't know what I would do.
I never want to miss these moments due to my pain. I live for this. Arthritis used to get in the way, but now with Blue Emu Maximum Arthritis Cream, I'll never miss another hug. Blue Emu Maximum Arthritis Cream. Beat the pain and enjoy life.
When every ingredient counts, count on Bush's chili beans. Simmered.
What should be first? How does he take action and quiet the critics?
Number one has got to be the economy. You saw it with the folks that Abby was talking to there in Scranton. He's got to get the economy moving, bring back jobs, raise incomes. I thought that was the heart of why people put their faith in him, and he's got to show that he really can deliver on that promise. That's got to be number one. But number two, I think, has to be that whole attitude of shaking up Washington. I think, again, that was the real reason that so many people said, we're going to go for this guy, even though he may say things that we may not like and all the things we saw in the campaign. But we're going to trust him because he's an outsider. He's going to shake things up. And so all the things he said about draining the swamp and more is what he needs to focus on, because you know that all those people in Washington are going to be sitting there right now. You can already see it, saying he's an amateur, he doesn't know what he's doing.
Chaos.
We're going to run rings around here, and we're going to tie him down with all the stuff that
the swamp's going to fight back. I mean, you saw that in the UK. What else do you anticipate them doing?
Well, look at what happened after Brexit. So people voted, they had their say, it was really clear, and then you see immediately the establishment fighting back, saying, well, let's have a soft Brexit, not a hard Brexit. There's always discussion around about what the vote really meant, the legal challenges, the way people are trying to say, well, look, that they may have had a referendum, but in the end, we've got to stick with the establishment view, and he's going to get all of that and more, because the change that he promised was bigger. And so I think that he's got to really take on DC and show that when he said he was going to be the big outsider disruptor who's going to change the way business is done, he really meant it.
Yeah, Steve, he has a huge responsibility. We'll be following it. Thank you so much.
Steve Hilton, great job. It's going to be interesting to see if he actually sleeps at Trump Tower and commutes to Washington like he was talking about doing.
Oh, man.
That'll be incredible. Thanks, Steve Hilton. Great job.
Thank you, Steve. The mayors of major American cities vowing to defy President-elect Donald Trump on immigration.
To be clear about what Chicago is, it always will be a sanctuary city.
Well, how does the mother of someone killed by an illegal immigrant feel about that? Sergeant Brandon Mendoza's mother, you know her, you've seen her, she's been on Fox, we love her. Her name is Mary Ann. She is here next.
These are the eyes of 3 generations of experience and more than a little well-earned wisdom. We're Interim Healthcare, and we've been helping
to find out what is your message to them.
These mayors are speaking out and allowing these illegal aliens to assume that they have the same rights as legal immigrants in our country. The Chicago mayor stated, that Chicago was founded on immigrants, and that's a true statement. But what most of them are failing to project out there and let these people know is, if you're an illegal alien in our country committing crimes, you don't have the same rights as a legal immigrant who has gone through the process of becoming an American citizen, time, money spent doing it. And these legal immigrants can be deported for a lot of the crimes that these illegal immigrants are committing, and our elected officials in some of these cities and towns are protecting them for.
If Donald Trump's policies were in place, the guy who killed your son, would he be here in the U.S.?
No, he would not.
Why do you say that?
He committed fraud, he committed burglary, he assaulted a police officer. Those are crimes that should warrant a person to be deported from our country. There's so many things that, rapes, murders, all of these things. And these elected officials, for the life of me, I don't understand why the residents in these cities don't understand that they're protecting them. They commit crimes. They don't get a hold of our federal officials to come and get them and deport them. It's federal immigration laws. And, where do you draw the line of what's right and what's wrong in this country? When is it going to be important to our politicians that Americans come first? Mm-hmm. And there's so many things that are protecting illegal aliens in our country. The list just goes on and on and on. Taxpayer money that provides them the benefits that they come here, to get for free: welfare, food stamps, education, healthcare. All of these things are coming out of our pockets, and people wonder why our taxes have gone up over the years. And a lot of these mayors try and claim that these sanctuary cities do not have higher crime rates. When you look at a chart of sanctuary cities and crime rates, whether they've risen or gone down, they fail to mention some of them that crime has increased over 600% in some of these sanctuary cities. They only want to focus on the ones that have lessened, and a lot of times those illegal aliens have moved out of those those cities, and the population isn't as great in there.
You bring up a good point. The illegals have more rights than the citizens. Thank you so much, Marian, for being here this morning. We're sorry again for your loss.
Thank you.
Sure. Is President-elect Trump's transition really in chaos, like the mainstream media is saying? Advisor to Mr. Trump, Mr. Jason Miller, he is here to set that record straight, and that's in the next hour.
He's got working hand.
Who is hired for President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet? Is this a hint? Look at that. One of Mr. Trump's biggest opponents, Ted Cruz, caught leaving Trump Tower. And we are live with the latest.
Interesting developments. And anti-Trump protesters did everything from defacing property to burning American flags. But get this, most of them, well, you guessed it, didn't even vote.
Surprising. Chaos erupts inside the Democratic Party as members on a delayed vote. Yeah, they delayed the vote on their party leadership. Wait, does that mean that Nancy Pelosi might no longer be Leader Pelosi?
What?
Think about that. And while you're on the edge of your seats, like me, let me remind you, your mornings are better with friends.
A little song I wrote. You might want to sing it note for note. Don't worry.
Long Democrat, voted for Mr. Trump, now an independent, talking to him about why he changed his mind. Also, family over here, registered Republican and independent. So a lot of interesting stories. We're going to be here all morning during coffee. You're going to hear those stories coming up. So stick with us. We're also dancing.
Having some fun. We're not worrying. We're being happy. Thank you so much,
The election's over. Time to come together.
I love the checkered shirts.
Right.
You wear checkered shirts sometimes. I'm sure you do too.
I do all the time.
Love them.
Right. I mean, Abby can dress up, and she can dress like the people. That's what I'm getting.
That's right. She is the people.
All right. Now, what's the breaking news?
Our top story this morning: who is Donald Trump going to hire? President-elect Trump holding intense interviews for his cabinet now.
Yep. And this morning we are learning about brand new big names spotted at Trump Tower.
That's right.
Are they just there for the sights, or do they want a job?
You never know. You know who does know? Garrett Tenney's live in Washington, D.C. with the who's who on the list. Good morning, Garrett.
Good morning, Pete Ainsley and Brian. We've seen a lot of familiar faces coming in and out of Trump Tower over the last couple of days, but there have been a few surprises as well, including yesterday's visit by Texas Senator Ted Cruz. You'll remember Cruz was a bitter rival of Mr. Trump throughout the primaries, even calling him a sniveling coward at one time. Despite that, he's now rumored to be among those being considered for Attorney General. Following their meeting, Cruz would only say that he looks forward to working with Mr. Trump to advance conservative principles. Now, some other potential cabinet selections were also spotted throughout the day as well, including Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's also said to be a potential pick to head the Justice Department, Senator Jeff Sessions, who's on the short list for several cabinet positions, including Secretary of Defense, as is retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg. PayPal co-founder Peter Thiel also stopped by for some meetings with the transition team, along with Donald Trump Jr. and Mr. Trump's ex-wife, Marla Maples. Tommy Hilfiger was also spotted entering the building, though he does have an office there, so it's not clear if he was actually there for meetings with the transition team. Now, as speculation runs rampant, Mr. Trump weighed in last night on Twitter to respond to reports of infighting among his transition team and to make it clear he's in charge, saying, "Very organized process taking place as I decide on cabinet and many other positions. I am the only one who knows who the finalists are." It is notable, though, that Vice President-elect Mike Pence is quickly having an impact on this transition effort. Throughout the campaign, we heard Mr. Trump promise to drain the swamp. Well, last night we learned his transition team is now removing all lobbyists from that transition effort. Brian, Ainsley, Pete?
Thanks, Garrett.
And that should show. Thank you very much, Garrett. I know with Leslie Stahl, he said, went to that question about lobbyists on his transition team, says right now that's the only people there. We took lobbyists because they know their way around. He obviously changed his mind, and that has a lot to do with Mike Pence taking over. He went in there and said, guys, you're out of here. And there's also rumors that anybody associated with Chris Christie was also told to hit the road, including Mike Rogers.
There were also rumors that he was trying to get security clearance for his children so they would have access to emails and he would be able to talk about, secretive stuff with his kids. But he just tweeted out, he said this just happened a few minutes ago. "I'm not trying to get top-level security clearance for my children. This was a typically false news story."
Well, and he does, lays it out, goes over the top of the media. He's battled the media from the beginning. The New York Times has said it supposedly is going to take a hard look at their coverage and do things differently. But as it pertains to the transition, look at the headline just today in the New York Times. Literally, at top of the fold, filings and discord put Trump transition team in a state of utter disarray.
Look at this one from NBC. As Trump leaves press behind for a steak dinner, incoming administration already showing lack of transparency because he didn't tell the press that he was going to eat a steak dinner at the 21 Club with his family.
They're going to go after him. He's made some tough calls in the first week, getting his transition team up and going. To call it disarray is absurd.
But there is something that is happening, and there's a constant protest, even in the pouring rain yesterday. And also you have people who are worried about sanctuary cities going away because Donald Trump has this idea that if you sneak in here or come here illegally, that's a problem. And the sanctuary cities say you can stay if you get here. One of those places that illegals can go and feel safe, perhaps, might just be colleges across the country, including one in California.
Well, Stanford, it's a very liberal school, and that area, that whole state, went blue. But there are 500 students and faculty and staff members at Stanford in California that are protesting the policies of Donald Trump, so they're staging a walkout.
They're staging a walkout, and in Rutgers today, so on the East Coast, this is a bi-coastal thing here. They're staging they're pushing for a sanctuary campus. So you've got walkouts, sanctuary campuses. We asked earlier on the chairman of the Iowa House Oversight Committee. His name is Bobby Kaufman. He's got an interesting bill in Iowa. This is what he had to say earlier to address it.
Reports of rooms where you could play with Play-Doh and you could color on books and talk about your feelings. And I was even hearing reports of some schools that were bringing in ponies to be able to get students through the election. Well, for me, that's a waste of taxpayer dollar, and that also doesn't prepare kids for life, because in life, there's winners and losers. And in life, when your car breaks down, your kids get sick, or you have to take a second job up to pay your mortgage, you don't get to go to a cry zone. You don't get to pet a pony. You have to deal with it, which is why I came up with the bill, and the idea inspired Suck It Up, Buttercup.
Suck it up, Buttercup bill that would pull funds from schools that have these safe zones where everyone gets a trophy, because that's where these protests come from later on.
So we have sanctuary cities, these sanctuary campuses. So if you go to the schools and you're here illegally, they will protect you. That's the idea.
Right. Also, there's high schools letting their kids out during the day. If one kid slips out during the day at a high school, that the monitor's in trouble, teachers are in trouble, and the kid's in trouble. But now they're suddenly open up their doors, telling these kids to go to the malls, go out in the street where iPhone footage can be seen, and they act as if the election results are just a bunch of kids acting up. They're actually being pushed out there by their teachers, including that Fame School, up to the famous Fame School by Lincoln Center. They pushed all their kids out, told them to go protest in front of Trump Tower.
You mean teachers pushing social agendas in the classroom? That's nothing. This is an infection of our educational institutions that we're now seeing on our streets, which some are saying protesting, but we're also seeing riots. And there's some interesting aspects we learned about some of these rioters.
Steve Doocy has always said, he said it during the whole election, if you're not going to vote, you are not allowed to complain. That's not what's happening with some of these protests. There was a protest where 112 people were arrested. 70% of them weren't even registered or did not vote. That was in Portland.
That's exactly right.
So that's where the worst rioting was.
So the worst rioting in Portland, descending from out of town, again, so it's not just locals that are frustrated about Donald Trump. An organized effort in Portland, Oregon, 112 arrests. 70% of them haven't voted.
But they have an explanation.
They do have an explanation.
Right,
it's hilarious.
One of the guys who did not vote,
Kevin Grigsby says, I did not vote, and the reason why is because we know the Electoral College is really what matters the most, and I think that we need to change that because your vote doesn't matter if you don't have enough Electoral College points.
So they're complaining because Hillary Clinton won the popular vote.
Are they college points?
Right, absolutely.
Didn't know that.
Welcome to the most frustrating person to debate with. He is Mr. Grimsby. Fantastic. It's fun talking to people, but it is also interesting to hear everyone say, wow, the Electoral College that's a problem.
Yeah,
because now Senator Feinstein says it's outdated, it's a problem. Everybody knows that the popular vote has nothing to do with the Electoral College. It's not wow, I would have won if the popular vote mattered. That's like saying total yards the size of a football game, total hits the size of a baseball game. You have a totally different strategy if it's one person, one vote in popularity.
That's exactly right. And you've written about the founders. There's a reason they did this. Direct democracy they had seen fail elsewhere in the world at other times. So they said, we're going to do the Electoral College. And guess what? The left was just fine with the Electoral College when it was stacked at 248 votes for Hillary Clinton for sure. She just had to get to 270. Turns out she couldn't do that.
Well, for everyone who's upset, you can go to the polls in 4 more years. You're not going to win every election. All right, let's hand it over to Heather Childers. Who has
you really made him feel better with that.
Sorry.
You really have a way of picking up their moods.
All right, we are following some other news stories for you this morning. We begin with this: nearly 10,000 violent rioters flooding the streets of Greece, causing absolute chaos on President Obama's final world tour. The angry left-wing mob making it within miles of the U.S. Embassy, armed with gas masks, wooden clubs, and Molotov cocktails, some even burning American flags. Residents of the debt-criddled country blaming the U.S. for economic downfall, rising tensions among neighboring countries. And the Oklahoma City airport is back open this morning after the father of an NFL player is gunned down in what's being called a calculated attack. Police say that Michael Winchester, a Southwest employee, was shot in a parking lot at Will Rogers Airport. The airport immediately put on lockdown. The suspect shot himself dead in the airport parking lot. Police found him after hours of combing the area. He has been identified for you this morning. His name is Lloyd Bowie. Now, this is the victim's son. He is James Winchester. He's a long snapper for the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Democrats are facing another crisis in the wake of Hillary Clinton's defeat. The House leadership vote now delayed until November 30th, which means bad news for Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi.
Some people who say, you got beat pretty badly here, and this speaks of leadership.
That speaks to the presidential race more than our race.
Well, senior Democratic sources telling Fox News that the delay could help Pelosi gain momentum or could usher in some new blood. Ohio Representative Tim Ryan, a Clinton surrogate in the Rust Belt, is rumored to be a possible challenger. And Donna Brazile firing back at CNN following her divorce from the network. The interim DNC chair now claiming that she was railroaded leading up to her resignation last month after WikiLeaks revealed that she passed multiple debate questions to Hillary Clinton. Brazile says, quote, I wish CNN had given me some other things like the ability to defend myself rather than ripping me a new one. What does she mean? What is that new one? I have no idea. What do you think?
No comment.
I don't know what.
I'm not going to tell you what that means.
I don't know what a new one would be. What would be a new one?
Oh, God. People are eating breakfast this morning. Let's move on. The Trump transition team is working overtime to fill the cabinet positions. Another name on his short list, Senator Tom Cotton. Maybe the senator is going to join us live next.
That's right. And we asked people in battleground states who they were voting for. Now, we want to know, are they happy with the results? Abby Huntsman is cooking up breakfast in Scranton, getting the voice as potential picks for Secretary of Defense, including Jeff Sessions and retired General Keith Kellogg, are spotted at Trump Tower yesterday. Joining us now is another name reportedly on that very same shortlist, Iraq and Afghanistan veteran, Army Ranger, and GOP Senator Tom Cotton. Senator Cotton, thanks for joining us this morning.
Morning, Pete. Great to be on with you.
All right, got to go straight to the top line question. Is Senator Tom Cotton on that short list, and have you talked to Mr. Trump about potentially being the next defense secretary?
Pete, the President-elect and I spoke last week, but only to extend my congratulations on the behalf of the people of Arkansas for his victory. Donald Trump is going to make all these decisions on his own schedule and in due time. And I think it's best that everyone just wait for those decisions. Meanwhile, I'm working in the Senate for the people of Arkansas to help prepare for increased defense spending and holding Iran to account for its malign activities and to try to implement Donald Trump's immigration agenda. And I'm very happy to be doing that.
Sure. We're going to put up a list of other folks on that short list. With your name on it as well, Senator Sessions, Representative Duncan Hunter, Michael Flynn, Lieutenant General Kellogg. But as you mentioned, you spent your time in the Senate fighting against the Iran deal, fighting to increase defense spending, two big elements, or fighting for more defense spending and against the sequester, two big elements of what President-elect Trump has talked about. If he were to ask you to serve, if he were to come to you, would you accept that position?
Pete, Donald Trump is going to make all those decisions on his own schedule. And I think it's best that we all just wait for him to make those decisions. But in the meantime, we need to prepare the ground to hit the ground running in January with that new agenda, like repealing those dramatic defense cuts and rebuilding our military and holding Iran to account.
Sure. No, I know it's your job at this aspect not to answer that question just as it's mine to ask it. But I totally appreciate that and understand it's a decision outside of your control at this point. One other aspect, there's a lot of ramifications of President-elect Trump's election. One is the future of Guantanamo Bay, an issue you've talked about a lot. There's been some reports that President Obama could try to loosen the standards and push people out now. What do you see happening in the next couple of months? Does it stay open? And what does the future look like for Guantanamo Bay?
Well, I've been struck since the election not only at Donald Trump's magnanimous tone, but also Barack Obama's gracious beginning of the transfer of power. I would hope that President Obama wouldn't take that kind of dramatic action contrary to the president-elect's wishes. President Bush did not do that when President Obama was coming into office. Guantanamo Bay, though, won't be closed. It might be empty or its population might be reduced, but it will remain open and it will remain a critical tool in our global war against terror.
Well, here's hoping that deference is given in this transition period, and certainly with an ongoing war against an enemy like ISIS and folks like Iran, we're going to need a place to extract information and hold folks. I know. Thank you for leading the charge on issues like this in the Senate. Now you got a lot of work ahead of you today. Senator Tom Cotton, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Pete.
You got it. All right, illegal immigrants coming up with a backup plan if President-elect Donald Trump builds that wall, maybe pardons from President Obama. We'll see. And Abby's having breakfast with friends 1 week after the election. Abby, who are you talking to?
Good morning. We're in Scranton, Pennsylvania. To understand how Mr. Trump won last week, you have to understand what happened right here in Scranton. I'm here with Joe, who is a Navy vet, lifelong Democrat. Joe, who did you vote for this time?
Donald Trump.
I bet you're wondering why he voted for Mr. Trump.
Gradually zoom out. We'll reveal somebody else back on our couch. Jason Miller is the senior advisor to President-elect Donald Trump. And 1 week prior to Election Day, Jason, you were up in radio with me and you said, listen, I'm seeing polls, we're going to win. Not many people said you're going to win. They still looked at you underdog. You were convinced. Were you selling me or did you believe that?
I was looking at the numbers, and what we saw is heading into Election Day that these blue states were moving in President-elect Trump's direction. And this trade message, this jobs message, the overall need for change, what he had been talking about on the trail was exactly what people wanted. And so it may have come as a shock to some of the professional prognosticators, but for us, we saw this coming all along.
Interesting. So here we are a week after that, and into the transition. Decisions have been made, changes have been made. You guys are trying to pick a cabinet in due diligence. Yet the New York Times and others are trying to say that's in utter state of disarray. The New York Times says firing and discord put Trump transition team in a state of disarray in Trump Tower. Give us the real deal. You're behind the curtain. What's happening on the transition right now?
Well, the real deal is the president-elect is going to get this right. And he's going to make sure that every single appointment and every single person he puts into key leadership is someone who's absolute top-notch leadership, who has a good track record, and is going to help him implement his agenda. And so you can't always believe what you read in the newspapers.
Really?
As we know.
Breaking news.
But everything, there's a plan. And the president-elect working with Vice President-elect Pence, they have a very systematic plan to go and get things put in place. They want to make sure that everything is put together right, because we don't want to get in there and have any false starts or stumbles. Going to have it right when we're heading in at the beginning, and then we're going to go do some really exciting things.
Jason, there's a list of people in front of us here this morning that have been seen going in and out of Trump Tower lately. I know you're probably not going to reveal too much. Why don't you just smile if any of these people are going to be in cabinet? We've got Tommy Hilfiger. Okay. We have Marla Maples. There's kind of a half smile there. That's
right.
A maybe.
That was a non-reaction.
Ted Cruz.
Great guy.
He's your friend.
He's a great guy.
That you were working with
What do you make
Ted
of that?
Cruz.
That's one, I think America's looking at it and saying, hey, they were rivals. Now he's at Trump Tower. What do you make of that?
Senator Cruz came on board during the campaign. We're glad to have his support. He's a great ally, and he's offered to help as we're putting things together. And I think he's someone that I think could be a big asset going down the road.
Would you say that more Supreme Court Justice or Attorney General? I mean, he's no stranger to the Supreme Court. He's argued many cases there. Would you say that there will be offers to him and see what he's interested in? Was it more of a feeling out process, or was it like, Ted, I have a job for you in mind. If you're interested, come, and he came?
Well, the thing to keep in mind is that the president-elect is a very successful businessman. And one of the reasons why he's been so successful is he takes in a number of different opinions and puts together his thoughts for how he wants to do this. Senator Cruz is definitely someone who has some very good ideas for how to go and structure the government going forward, has some brilliant insight. And ultimately, though, the picks are going to come down to what the president-elect wants to do.
How do you think it's going to roll out all at once? Because we had 2 Sunday and nothing since. Do you see 15 names at one time? Do you see one at a time? What's the strategy there?
Well, I think the strategy, again, as I said, it's to get it right. I mean, ultimately, as they go through the list, we want to make sure that the people that are being put in place are going to be able to implement the president's agenda. And keep in mind, we want to come out of the gate strong. We want to repeal and replace Obamacare right out of the gate. We're going to come after the tax code and try to get some real reforms that are going to help grow jobs. And we have to secure the border. This is an absolute key priority. And so whoever being put into these positions have the same energy in the fire as the president-elect to go and get this done. Otherwise, they're not going to be considered.
Sure, you've got to have unapologetic folks in all of these departments willing to make the same case he has and go at the swamp. Otherwise, the swamp will quickly absorb you. Part of that swamp are executive orders that he's issued. And President Obama recently has said it's not going to be that easy. Donald Trump can't do as much as he thinks he can with executive orders. Is he standing firm on, hey, things like Obamacare and regulations on energy are going to be gone on day one?
Well, so this is the great thing, is that we have someone like Vice President-elect Pence working with this strong team, our transition team, to go and figure out the best legislative strategy. And you've seen some of these congressional leaders coming into the building, and the president-elect meeting with some of these congressional leaders in Washington. They're already working on these plans, and so we're ready to hit the ground running on day one. And so some of those might be executive orders, some of those might be legislation that they bring up right away, some of them might be a little bit further down the road, but they're going to do everything he said
Jason,
on the campaign trail.
Huge responsibility for Donald Trump, because people have voted, and he has 4 years to change this country for the better, according to the people who voted for him.
And the thing to keep in mind with all these people that he's putting in place is that he has the judgment to make sure that the right people are being put in. And I think the American people are going to be very proud with who he picks.
I heard that picking the national security team are Pete Hoekstra, Frank Gaffney, Devin Nunes. Are they playing the key role for putting the security team together?
There's a big, broad group, and I'd say the key leaders on that are Vice President-elect Pence, as well as our Executive Director, Rick Dearborn, for the transition team. And there are a number of other folks who are helping with it, but it's a big, broad group. Ultimately, it comes down to the president-elect. He'll be the one who ultimately makes all the decisions.
You going to stay with the campaign?
Whatever the president-elect asked me to do.
But going to Washington, you would do it if asked.
Whatever he asked me to do, I'm there to
I think
help.
that's a yes.
Good answer.
Thanks, Jason.
Jason, thanks a
All
lot.
right, Jason, congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you. Congrats.
Okay.
All right, let's hand it over to our friend Heather Childers, who has some more headlines.
Nice to be with you guys this morning.
Nice to see you.
Some stories that we've been following since Fox and Friends First this morning. They are in the country illegally, and now they're demanding President Obama issue as many as 750,000 pardons in a last-ditch effort to stop deportations. A massive rally is planned in New York City today over President-elect Donald Trump's immigration plan. Mr. Trump wants to cancel an Obama administration order that protects young undocumented adults, known as Dreamers, and grants them taxpayer benefits. And the election may be over, but Hillary Clinton's legal troubles are not. Utah Congressman Jason Chaffetz now vowing to keep her email probe open.
We got to get to the truth. It was never about the political targeting of Hillary Clinton, but she did create one of the biggest security breaches in the history of the State Department. So we have tens of thousands of documents we still haven't seen.
Clinton blames her loss on FBI Director James Comey, who reopened the case just 11 days before the election. And a warning from doctors this morning about the health of your children. Apparently, they're concerned that President-elect Trump might overturn Michelle Obama's school lunch guidelines and ruin all the progress that the country's made against the obesity epidemic. Those doctors also concerned that children may ask their parents for more fast food because they see President Trump eating it on TV. The government's current school lunch program has come under fire for years for not appearing as appetizing as advertised. So what do you think? Is it as appetizing? Kind of bland looking there.
Italian dunkers and the things I loved in elementary school.
Pizza,
I don't want a salad. Pizza? Yeah.
I think the salad looks really good.
Get out of town. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Heather. All right, I think Janice Dean is outside. Janice, what are we expecting today?
We are expecting a big winter storm. Can you tell I'm excited? I really want to do my first snow angel of the year. Let's take a look at it. It's moving across the northern plains and then into the upper Midwest. It's just starting to get its act together, but this is going to be a big one. We have blizzard watches in effect for parts of Minnesota and the Dakotas. Pete, I hope your family is listening. There it is, winter storm advisories for millions of folks, and there is our blizzard watch that's in effect, as this is going to affect the region Thursday and Friday. Up to a foot or more of snow and blizzard conditions. So there's the future radar as we get further out in time. Thursday, Friday, and then what's going to happen on the weekend? We actually could see some measurable snow across the Northeast. So will my wish come true that I can do a snow angel? Stay tuned.
Stay tuned, we will be.
Okay. I have a feeling we're going to be doing a lot of those together.
Yes! You're a snow angel girl, too?
I love it.
I knew I loved you for a reason, Ainsley.
Look out, though. I'm a snowball guy, so.
All right, 19 minutes before the top of the hour. It's been on the GOP's go-to list and the to-do list for decades. But President-elect Donald Trump plans to tackle taxes in his first 100 days. Is it finally possible? The man leading that fight, the chairman of Ways and Means, Kevin Brady, joins us live. Also, he's going to be pushing forward the TPP. How will that go?
And you've seen all the people crying over the results of this election, but one lawmaker has a message for them. Suck it up, Buttercup.
In Washington, Congressman Kevin Brady of Texas. The chairman, first off, people are wondering, we hear this talk all the time about proposed plans. Are you guys ready?
We will be ready. It is really exciting. We've got a president in Donald Trump who wants to fix this broken tax code, get the economy going. And so House Republicans, we've had a head start on this for many years. We're going to be ready to go.
You're speaking in one voice. So without getting too caught up in it, unless you're an accountant, we could easily lose people. So in bullet form, tell us what's in your plan.
Yeah, there is three. First, this is a tax code not designed to wring money from you, which is the one we have today.
This beautiful Wednesday, it's November 16th. I'm Ainsley Earhart. Who is hired and who is fired? President-elect Donald Trump forming his cabinet now. A lot of high-profile people on the list, and some were spotted at Trump Tower, including former rival Ted Cruz, Senator Jeff Sessions, as well as Tommy Hilfiger.
Okay. All right, then. It might be the most outrageous behavior we've seen yet from our president-elect. Quote, Trump leaves press behind for state dinner, showing an utter lack of transparency. Well, that's what NBC has to say, and apparently to them, that's actually news.
All right, while some were still crying over the election, college kids are walking out of class today, and some high school kids in protest of the president-elect's policies. But didn't a lot of these people not even vote?